Welcome to the Metagame Minute.
The Metagame Minute. Welcome, one and all, our weekly metagame show. Today with me and Bentley as Rafirian. How'd you enjoy your one-on-one there?
I got to tell you something.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want to necessarily do this like every week. Mm-hmm. Like if this was like my D&D thing of choice, I wouldn't want to do it every week. But I think an underrated form of playing this type of stuff, especially if you're a good storyteller, as you are, and you are, and you prepare and you have like a lot of good ideas, and like going back to like when Dash and I did it, he sent me like a paragraph, and then I expounded that into like 6 paragraphs and sent it back to him, and then we did 4 hours on it. So I think there's a thing of like storyteller and then also performer, where you can have so much fun doing a one-on-one session. Now, like, I wouldn't just want to play D&D with you every single week for a couple of hours like this, but I think for other folks out there listening, like, think about splitting up your party and think about doing like a one-on-one, like a 2-hour sesh or something that. Because one, there's a lot of stuff in there that like you can like make happen. I think that was kind of the goal of these things. Like there's a lot of individual things that we can bring back to like when, when we come back. As of right now, it'll be, we're in the second week of November, I believe, and it'll be December, like when we all get back together as a group. Spoiler. But like, it's such a cool and unique and interesting thing.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, absolutely. This one-on-one, very different than the group scenario. I'm definitely preparing each of these so differently than I would group sessions. But it does. You get to stretch your legs a lot more with your character. You get to do a lot more, things that you, I think, want to do with your character. And for me, it's been, telling stories and putting you in situations that I think would be interesting for you to play in. Definitely not all the time like this kind of setup, but I'm really digging that we're doing this for everyone. For this. Like,
so there's a question for you. Like when you came in at the end of last season 3, like I brought you in early on for something, and then I brought you in for the finale for those awesome dwarf twins that you made. You were going from just playing tabletops and D&D and doing all this stuff for, I'm assuming a decade or more,
right
already, and you were coming into a show format. And I remember having discussions with you when we decided that you were going to be the person that took over, for season 4 as the DM. I go, remember, it's not just, we are doing a show and we are doing this. And so there is a format, and that's why I brought you in, like when I did, in season 3, just to sort of test out. And we've said this before, like test everybody out and test you out. And like, so your adaptation, I've said this to you via text, but I'm going to say it on, and I think I may have said it on audio, but like your adaptation to, and I went back and I started listening to season 4, from the beginning. My goal was to listen to all of it before I did this, and I got to episode 4. But your adaptation to the show format, the idea of playing that I think you probably had to adapt to knowing that there is an audience listening. It's not just about us in the room, and it is about us
definitely,
in the room.
There's definitely been a learning curve with that.
There's, and that sort of thing. But I think you've adapted it super well. And then I told you, I think it was a month or 2 months ago or something. I go, look, this is something I always did for, like when I was doing it, I did like a Halloween episode, that sort of thing. But then we figured out there's 5 players. There's 5 players, there's 5 Mondays in November, let's do this, and then like, blah, blah, blah. So then like you curtailed your story, did this. So my question to you, I just did all that backstory for the people listening, Metagame Minute, baby. The single adventures, have you ever done anything like this before? Yes or no?
Once when I was preparing for the start of a campaign, I did some one-on-ones with my players to get them to where the start of the campaign would be.
Okay.
So that was a little bit of this big for this kind of backstory of a story.
And then my second question is, and you're starting to dovetail into it, how did you prepare for all of our, like, I'm the second one coming out, but I'm the fourth one to be recorded. So I've seen everybody else's. The only one at this point left to be recorded is Rhett's. And so I've seen everyone else's. I kind of remember. How did you prepare for everyone's sort of like individual story? Like, and how did you make it? Because I'm going to tell you this right now. Like, I had ideas about my family, and it wasn't what you just did. Like, in my head, how I wrote my story, my family helped start the monastery. My family is part of the monastery of the Silver Song. And you have it completely different. So now that's what it is.
Well, in part of that, that backstory of them starting the monastery is still absolutely true.
Okay.
They're a noble family that lives in this place, Javiel, but is closely associated with the Shadow Song Academy.
Right. So I guess the only small difference in like what I had written down was that my parents are at the monastery all the time, and I didn't grow up in like a rich place. I grew up at the monastery because my parents, it's kind of like I took it from Jackie Chan's autobiography where he was in this Beijing opera martial arts academy, where it's like, it's not just a martial arts academy. It is like, if we want to go airbender, it's all, it's a bunch of different styles. So it's like you come in and you learn like the first 3 levels and it's all this basic stuff, and then it's kind of like college. You kind of pick the school of magic you want to learn, the monastery, the stuff, and some of it is performance magic. So that's like a bard college within the monastery. There's all this different shit. And so like, and my parents were more the performance side, the bard, and I just happen to be this weird freak thing, but I'm enjoying this. I'm going to adapt to it. You fucking
we've talked about your backstory in many different variations. But
I text you a lot.
Yeah. But this is what I've been kind of building and having for that story.
I love it because it wasn't something that I dictated. And this whole thing with my uncle, I remember you said, I was like, you're like, I have an idea for your uncle.
Yeah.
And I went, and that was like 6 months ago. Yeah. And I was like, oh, bummer. I had all these fun ideas. And I fucking... And blew my fucking brain out.
To circle back around to it is
how did you design all of our individual shits?
Yeah, there's a number of things I wanted, like,
and how much of it did you know back in episode 1, or like when did you start developing it? Okay, go.
Yeah, I mean the development's always very fluid, and a lot of this has been from the storyline of the Kenkus and the basement that you guys have been pulling at, and so a lot of it's associated with that. The big thing I wanted to do was tell the story of this family and this home and where they were, where they are, so that you have like this deeper understanding of what this Chateau de Magnus is, because it's been such a central thing for this season.
100%.
And so that was my big grand view, was let's tell the story. Let's tell 5 different unique stories that show off what this place used to be, that relates to your characters in some way. So for yours, it's been going with Jean, who you kind of can maybe guess this, left the family to join another noble family in a different land.
I wouldn't have guessed that at all.
Yeah, so
I'm a fucking dum-dum when it comes to all this shit. Like, that's why I love the metagame minutes.
Riff knows that Javiel, the nation that they grew up in, is across the world from Usama.
Would Riff know Alistair? No. Alistair would be older.
No. Alistair is older. And this is the metagame minute. I will say this. Boz, Tony, back probably 12 years ago, played 1 game of D&D with me, and he played Lord Rybang, the vampire hunter.
Okay.
And so when I was building this story, I knew Jean had left, and she had joined this noble family in Javiel. And
she's part of the Tony's Boz's 45th Parallel podcast. Check it out.
Yeah.
That's like her husband.
Lord Rybang she marries Lord Rybang. They have a child who grows up to be the character that Tony plays. Because he played Lord Rybang, the vampire hunter, and I have this character that's over in this nation where he was in when he played, and it just all made sense. Well, of course, that's her son who grows up to be the vampire hunter because he learns that from his mom.
Oh, so that's who I was playing, Alistair?
That's who you were playing as, was Alistair Rybang.
So I was playing Tony as a kid?
Yes.
That's so dope.
Yeah.
Shout out to Boz.
Yeah.
45th Parallel.
And I asked him about that, and he has no memory of it. I think we...
Oh, you asked him recently?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, just a few weeks ago. I know I've seen his character sheet in my files somewhere, but it's been lost in the moves.
We got to find it, and so we can scan it and put it on the shit.
For sure. And that's back in like 4th edition. I forget the adventure we went on.
So how did you go about?
For
like,
one
I mean,
session.
you kind of answered it, but like, as far as all of our characters go, based off of like everything that we've been doing and that sort of stuff, like, how did you? Going into this, because I gave you about a month and a half sort of prep, being like, this is where we're at in the recording process. Because as of right now, we're at the end of August, for all you listeners. And because of, quarantine and COVID and all that stuff, we just started playing every Tuesday for a couple hours, and like we knocked out. In like June. In June, we were at the end of August, and so so like we were knocking out episodes left and right. We used to do like one session a month for like a long time, and then we were just playing for a couple hours every single week, for like 3 months, and we got really ahead. So I said, hey, we're getting to this point. So you have about a month plus of prep time.
Yeah.
And I said, like, we could do like a Halloween October thing, or and then you and I were both looking at the calendar, and you go, hey, there's 5 weeks in November, and I go, fuck, there is 5. Like, what if you? And I told you about the solo stuff, and what we did way back in season 1, we did these solo episodes just because of scheduling and shit. I was like, we should do something like that. So how did you go about preparing it for each individual character? And I know you just said you wanted to tell the story of the chateau.
And that was my initial idea, was to actually have you guys play different characters, kind of go back in time, and you play as the family, and they do some sort of like murder mystery ghost thing in the house. That was my first idea.
I remember you telling me that,
And then we came up with this idea that there's, 5... episodes that are going to be in November. We could do a one-on-one like you were talking about you had done before, and that's where the ideas really started to come, where I could do a one-on-one with
in person
everyone,
again, because for all you folks out there, we're playing in my driveway, socially distanced, playing in my driveway outside, and so anyway.
And so I still want to do that thing where we kind of went back in time. We tell the story of the family, but we had gotten to this point where this big thing was happening with the thing in the dungeon with this aboleth, and so then I wanted to tell the story of how it came here, and so that's how all these will be structured.
And that's what was in my box in this episode.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it tells the story from. Where Bairn, which would be last episode, incurs the debt of it. Your story right now is how, you kind of safeguard it. And then there will be a couple other stories of how basically it gets there and how Gaston is trying to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so that was my big overarching kind of storyline for all of the episodes. And then I just kind of looked at each one, figured out what I wanted to do in it, what I thought would be interesting for your specific character. Since we're doing one-on-one, I don't have to try and appeal to everyone. I wanted to tell a story that I thought you would be able to kind of grab
and I think you've done that very well, and people will hear it once again, since I'm only the second week, but we've recorded 4 of the weeks at this point. You've played to everyone's personality strengths and the way they like to play very well.
And so,
because I had a fucking blast.
Good. I'm glad.
And this is and I can tell you this is the longest one.
Yeah, I think so.
Spoiler alert.
This one, I know I wanted to do the thing with the uncle, because that's been a big story, and I wanted to get that out.
I'm not going to lie to you. That fucked me up, man.
Cool. That's what I was hoping
that
for.
really like you were telling me this stuff and like how convenient, because you've done that to me before where like this person, like, you know, I'm talking to this person, like they're confused and like, you know, I'm talking about the Ghostwise Halfling of the, you know, like people aren't responding to it and that kind of shit. But then I'm talking to my uncle, I'm like, now is he fucking with me because we're in a dream? And then you started explaining shit, and then you started doing this thing like I'm a fucking fraud shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you motherfucker. And the entire time, like, you can hear me go quiet. I went quiet for several minutes or something like that. Yeah. And like you as the DM saw my face, my eyes got wide, I just put like the microphone on my chin and my mouth was open. And I was just smiling, a huge smile as you explain all this shit about how you're a fucking fraud. And I was like, you motherfucker. I was so blown away. That's such a cool fucking thing. Like, how did you think it? Fuck you, explain yourself.
I mean, what specifically? You know, there's only so much I'm going to give because this uncle storyline is
no, I understand. Explain what you can explain. Like, how did you think of it? Why did you want to fuck me over?
Well, with the uncle being the fraud, it's something we had talked about, was that this thing that happens with your family, that the Ghostwise Halfling shows up every so many generations. And then I had this player. One of my first players was a Ghostwise Halfling in so many ways. It was very similar. The way I think of the Ghostwise Halflings are these kind of undead adjacent. Not that they're undead, but that they can see the undead in some way.
Interesting.
And
that's
so,
cool though. Because you've never expressed that to me, so that's
yeah. That's why the family is very associated with shadows, with the dead, with making sure they stay dead, and that's why they're so associated with the monastery.
And why Alistair looked weird and gray. That's interesting.
That was because Alistair Rybang, Lord Rybang, his character I think was a Shadar Kai, which was like this shadowy elf.
Oh, okay.
Back in 4th edition.
Oh, okay.
And so his father is that. That's what it is.
Okay.
But it was generations that it would happen.
Like the dream was starting to split, and I was starting to look more like me or something.
I will say this: when you entered that place, Alistair kind of went away.
Okay.
When that happened. Which was odd.
Did Riff ever really go away though? Because I just played Alistair the exact same way.
Yeah, right. And that's how I have expected everyone to do it.
The second that you said that, like, Alistair was a little kid, like when we were playing like the hide and seek or whatever, I was like, okay, I can just play it the same way.
Yeah. Shoot, what was I thinking? Oh, that's right. The generations.
Yeah.
Like that. This thought came into my head is like, well, your uncle's a fraud then.
Yeah.
Something happened, and I'm like, I don't know what it was that happened, like back when we first started, but it's like something he's doing he's not what he says he is. That's why the family doesn't like him. That's why he's gone, is he's tried to hide this.
I always just thought it was because he was in, and Riff, well, me, Bentley, but also Riff, like, just thought it was because, oh, this is the burden I'm going to have to bear. I'm a Ghostwise like, people aren't going to respect me. And so, like, when, I've always played it this way, like whenever I've gone out and I've like listed all my titles and stuff, and I'm like, this is just the burden you have to bear because you're the Ghostwise Halfling of the age. And now it might just like, and now you're having me as a player and me as a character rethink it, where I go, these people probably just don't know who the fuck you are.
Yeah. And everyone that has
known
the name.
And also, it's been at least like 100 years since one was around, so probably no one knows who the fuck it is because your uncle actually isn't one and hasn't been using the title,
right?
And you just fucking blew my mind with that shit.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, you're the Ghostwise Halfling of the age. I want to make sure you, the player that's playing now, felt like you were this. You're the character that's here. It's your story. It's not your uncle's story. It's not like you're going after him. He was a fraud. He took this and took advantage of the situation.
The fact that he doesn't even know what the treasure of Aether is, fuck, that pisses me off, but it's so cool.
And that was something probably...
You're a fucking asshole.
I would say
I love it.
That was a few sessions in where I realized what the treasure of Aether is. And then I realized that it's somehow associated with the Cincinnati, which is I don't think you figured this out in the game, but is a deity in my world.
I don't know much about D&D. I just like
that's
fucking
one that's
around.
my own creation that I've just fallen in love with. I love the Cincinnati.
Yeah.
She's a god of secrets, and that's why no one ever knows of her.
Right.
Yeah. And
She's
so
Fight Club.
I knew the treasure of Aether is related to her in some way, and
Yeah.
you did get that clue from the library as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that was it's taking the story that we're telling and figuring out what parts you're interested in, what parts are really sticking for you, and just pulling those along to fit with the other parts of the story.
I got to say, you're pretty good at this.
Yeah. Thank you. That's encouraging, because I never know until I get somebody saying it's like, oh, I had fun.
Oh my god!
If it was fun or not.
Dude, like I'm starting up a game, as you know, like with some friends and stuff like that, and we just had we had a TPK, and I was playing, and then I was like, they're like, well, we can't really do the rest of my story. The guy who was DMing, and
oh, right, yes.
And so I went and went around, who wants to DM, who wants to do, and no one was saying shit for honestly, no joke, 2 minutes. I was watching the clock, and people just kind of kept shuffling their feet in the dirt and shit like that, virtually and all that kind of shit. And I was just like, you know what? I'll do it. I'll DM. And I got to say, you inspire me, because we've talked about it before, and we were talking about it before we were recording this, is that you have this world, and I asked you about this last time you were here. You have this world that we're playing in, and I said, hey man, do you have previous adventures or if we go to this hotel, you've got this thing of shit that happens and whatever. And you kind of explained to me, you're like, I've got a world and I've got things, and sure, I have adventures and I have these things in these spots and whatever, but I always try to, obviously curtail it to what's happening with the characters I'm playing,
right,
or whatever. But I do have a bag of tricks to play from. So if you guys do show up in this town and you want to go to this hotel, yeah, I have something in mind that I could do for you, and I could probably run something similar to what I did, years ago, whatever. And I was like, dude, I DM'd for over 100 episodes. I've got Dewania. And before that, Red, the guy who created, the world. So there's 130 plus episodes, because Caleb's got some solo episode. We got some birthday stuff, all in that world. There's 130 to 140 hours worth of shit in this world. And I was like, I'll just go back and play in that sandbox. You inspired me. Yeah. You're so good at what you do, and it's such a, it's one of the coolest executive decisions where I go, hey man, this guy needs to come play with us, because in every group you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to fucking guy, who's this fucking guy,
yeah.
and then then I tried you out on him. They're like, dude, the same with Dash. I said, Dash wants to, and then Dash left the first time. I'm like, hey, can you play with us always? And it was pretty much the same with you, and I was like, and so I've learned so much from you, how you do things, and we talk a lot. I ask you tons of questions, just like I text you tons of questions, and you're always so cool and kind and giving, and it's been a real pleasure this entire season. And I was so looking for, there's a reason, and maybe I think you set the order of the single episodes, as far as who was playing when. I'm so happy you saved me to fourth, because I'm a visual learner and I'm an audio learner, so I have to watch stuff in order to really, really get it. I have to understand what is going on. If I was the first person, we wouldn't have had this episode. Yeah. We wouldn't have had this session.
I think the order went really well. Having Dash as the first one,
because he goes with anything, and he's a fucking maniac.
That was great. That taught me a lot, and I changed a lot of what I was doing based on that first one. But and I was glad that you were where we are now, because you were here watching all of them, and you kind of knew what to expect, and that, I think, made this whole thing run.
I was so excited.
A lot smoother, yeah.
So now normally, you run the metagame minute. So now you have a set of questions you've asked everybody else.
Yes,
I've monopolized your time for 15, 20 minutes.
Let's get to the
let's go into Alex. So introduce yourself. You start the metagame minute over.
Let's stop this, building Alex's ego up session. Because that's not going to help anything. The first question I have that I've been asking everybody is, or will be asking everybody, is how does Riff feel about Zephyrus's situation, his death, and then his odd half-death, place that he's in?
So, Riff definitely and at the time of the recording of this, we're at episode 30. So we just went into that plane with that weird monster, the weird Kenku monster guy. And 3 or 4 episodes before that, I went into the chateau by myself and got fucked up by those dwarves. I think it was episodes 25, 26, something like that. And now we're in episode 30. And we've talked about it on the Metagame Minutes, and I've listened, obviously I'm the show editor, so I listened to them. And Rhett or Dash has asked me a similar question, which is you've never really had any consequences to your actions.
Right.
How do you feel? Because the time that I got hit by that dwarf in episode 26, honestly, I think that is the first time that's 26 hours of gameplay or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's the first time I took damage.
Yeah.
The entire campaign. And then the second time has been, was in the Kenku,
in the sphere of annihilation.
Yeah, the sphere of fucking let's get fucked of Alex being hey, can you guys be team players, or how what's the deal here?
Yeah.
But sorry, what was your question again?
How's Riff feeling about Zephyrus' situation?
So during all of that, Riff has, Zephyrus has always been oh, you're a child, and you're, Riff, and I will spank your bottom. He tries to be like a parent, because I think he just doesn't know what else to do, because he's not used to this independent little 11-year-old shit talker.
Yeah.
And so but Riff has a huge fondness for Zephyrus, and, Riff, and we've talked about it before, is I just based it, this is how I describe it to people. I go, Riff is Aang from The Last Airbender, dressed like Kylo Ren with a little bit of his attitude, and also the cockiness of Michelangelo from the Ninja Turtles.
Sure, yeah.
One, because of the chucks, but two, just because Michelangelo is very playful and is just I'm a fucking badass, but then he gets hit and he's oh fuck, he gets kicked in the fucking head, he's oh, not cool.
Yeah.
And then he gets back up and starts fighting people, know? Mm-hmm. And those are the three things I really try to derive personality and character-wise, when I do Riff. And so I do miss Zephyrus, but in gameplay, and we've sort of mentioned this at this point, but within it's weird. It's almost like Back to the Future. It's weird trying to think of the timelines, because you don't want to give shit away. But I know by now Zephyrus is is
with this
fucking dead.
It's been episodes.
It's been at I think 15 or 20 episodes.
Yeah.
But within gameplay, it's been 2 days.
Right.
So it's we came back with Zephyrus's gray corporeal body, stuck him in his bed. Next morning, we got up, went to the fucking tournament, beat the shit out of a bunch of motherfuckers, won shit, and then we came back, and it was more hey, it's evening, we got to put him in his bed, we all went to sleep, we woke up, and then when we came back, other shit happened, and then something, and I think within 2 to 3 days, now we're technically within the sphere of where we are, as we're listening to this Metagame Minute. So Riff still sort of has an arrogance going, oh, we're going to figure it out.
Gotcha.
We're going to figure it out.
It's on the to-do list, and you'll handle it.
He's a fucking genie. How can you kill air? Like, and we heard from somebody, like, I think it was his brother, like somebody was mentioned here, like somebody in one of the paintings walked down the fucking staircase or something. And
Eben,
like,
yeah.
Eben is like, I do declare,
the
blah,
real
blah, blah.
genie.
And
Eben's more like this.
no, but it was like his brother showed up in one of the set, or
Gaston.
the uncle Gaston. Thank you.
Yeah. Gaston's the one that kind of set all of these.
But I think,
things in
and
motion.
then like within that area, you said like, oh no, he's just on this, because we explained to Gaston this, and he goes, oh, he's just on this plane. So in Rift's
Right,
head, it is
because
like,
Chimola found
like,
that he was somewhere.
okay, I understand planes. I understand. Like I saw shit in the fucking hole. Like we'll just, I don't know how we do it, but we go to the other plane, we grab his stupid ass, we bring him back, and he's like, I do declare I've been awakened in my bed.
Gotcha. No, I like that. I that's, I think, other people I've said some.
That's how Riff.
Similar is.
That's how Riff and see the greatest thing about playing, like the reason I chose to play a little kid, especially like my first time back, because I haven't technically really played a character since season 1, which is back in 2017. So I played someone which is personality-wise my strength, which is
right.
I have ADHD.
It's always good to lean into that.
I'm dyslexic. I don't like taking notes. So I was like, play 11-year-old kid who wouldn't be paying attention unless people are paying attention to them. And that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question.
It's always more difficult to try and play somebody that's very different from your personality, and so if I'm ever playing, I tend to go towards a very,
which is why
very
we're on
Yamhorn
4.0. I think
right. Yeah,
or 3.0 maybe.
And then my other question for you is since we've began this, since we've been doing this season, is there anything about Rift's story that you thought was going to come up that you haven't seen, that you are surprised you
kind of did it tonight. You did it tonight with the uncle thing, because I wanted to. My big thing is like I wanted to like go off on a solo adventure and find the treasure of Aether. Like how I explained it to you in text, I was like, here's how I envision it: is that my uncle is John Voight and I'm Nicolas Cage, and this is National Treasure.
Yeah.
So I'm going to prove that the thing of the treasure of Aether exists, and then I'll be like, I will like bring my uncle back from like he wasn't a crazy guy, like that's how I explained it to you, and then you fucked me tonight, and you, in the best way possible, you fucked me real good, Alex, and and you fucking. I did not expect that. Like when you hear me be silent and you hear me just like,
no, that was surprising.
You hear me just sort of like in the microphone. Oh shit!
What?
Holy fuck! And like you didn't hear a lot of the shit. I was kind of like mumbling to myself because we're so far away from each other. Where I think we're probably 10 feet and socially distanced. You're welcome. But like if you go back and listen to this episode, I'm like, holy fuck. I just like I'm mumbling to myself and being like,
"Oh shit!
Fuck.
Oh fuck!" Yeah, and I was very excited.
But I'm sure like you also. How was you? Because I mean, you know me as a player. I'm very animated, and like this entire time, like I act out stuff.
Yeah.
Like whenever like we're talking, like you say this person's here, so like I was like looking and pointing and doing stuff. Like I acted out so I can sort of visually see it and make it a play for myself and have fun. But then I'm also like moving my body and stuff. So for you as a DM to see me just like sit forward on my table and like my eyes go wide and I just have this shit-eating grin on my face and I'm not fucking saying shit. I'm just mumbling to myself. What was that like when you were doing all the uncle shit? Because that was fucking that's my. I'm going to tell you right now. That's my favorite D&D moment I've ever had.
Nice. When the thought for that scene, for that thing happening, kind of came into my mind, I was excited because I knew it was going to be just hard hitting. It was gonna hit deep and just kind of change things for you in a very fun way, in a very interesting way. Doing it though, whenever you have those ideas and then doing it is always nerve-wracking. Like I part of how I prepare for these things is when I'm driving around, I just act out scenes in the car, in the van while I'm working.
100%.
Yeah, it's that's
I've
how I
had
do that.
so many conversations with myself in a car,
Yeah.
being like, okay, well, what if they did this, or what if they, like, I've caught so many people looking at me where I'm just like doing stuff. Now, luckily, I usually have like fucking headphones on.
Yeah.
So like if I'm like doing stuff and I look over and like I see somebody looking at me weird, like I just kind of point to my headphones and I go back to like whatever.
Yeah.
But no, we're cut from the same cloth, bud.
Yeah, and so in the moment is always tough when there's those scenes that you really want to make sure and do well, and have it feel organic. Like you're asking questions and I'm responding in certain ways.
You're very good at that. I will say this, like, as a guy who has been around a lot of improvisers and taken a lot of improv classes and performed on improv shows and shit like that, and like Dash is way better at it than I am. He's such a good improviser. I love what I love him. Like, I've gone to so many shows just because he's on it.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite performers of all time. He makes me laugh. He's just he's such a fucking silly goose, and I love him to death. I gotta say, for all of these motherfuckers that like I've been in improv class with and done shows with, or watched them do shows or whatever, hands down, you're fucking top 5, one of my favorite people to fucking go back and forth with, because I can throw anything at you. And I tried a couple. I think there's 3 different things that I tried with you specifically. I was like, I'm just going to see what he's going to say. It was because, like, you said, you've prefaced all of us before we start recording with, and if it doesn't work out, I'm just going to fast forward. It's in a dream. We're going to fast forward. You have your spiel. And so I was like, I'm going to throw some. 3 times specifically that I remember, I threw something at you, and you fucking went with it. And I was like, oh, this motherfucker, you're one of my favorite fucking people to play off against, because you're very good at accepting whatever, and either you will nicely like be like, halt, who goes there, step aside, or you go, let's go down to fucking Crazy Town and let's go down the fucking drain. Oh, and man. either I'm totally fine with and I love. You're one of my favorite people to go back and forth with and just fuck around with, like, in a creative thing like this, which is why I was so excited for my solo thing, because like I just wanted to play. And you're so fun to fucking, if we were little kids, like, you're very fun to play with.
Could go play at Billy's.
No, you're very fun to play with, and we're going to have a fun dip after this.
Oh, man. Well, thank you for that. That's, again, building Alex's ego. Really going to help me.
You've got a final question, right, bud?
Those are my big questions. Yeah,
Oh,
was Zeph
and
oh no, I guess. You, like we were saying, is there something about your riff story that you thought we would get to that we haven't gotten to? And you're saying with the
kind of with the uncle thing,
was that
for
big.
Sure. But like how we resolved it, like, I'm very impatient as a human being. I am so goddamn impatient. I fucking hate, like,
and that's why I think part of the inception of this idea was so exciting for me, was because it took that backstory that we've been talking about riff, and it gave it a direction. It took the parts that are were I think maybe vague, and solidified them in that Bicus was a fuck up, and some part of him is somewhere else.
I loved it.
And also something else is happening. There's some mystery that is tied to this real world body of Picus.
Yeah, the tree thing and the roots and
the Cincinnati is very associated with trees. And so that's part of that was why I was excited about that scene, was because I knew
it makes me
would distill
riff.
a lot of that backstory into something that you could take and run with.
It makes me as Riff think differently, or it makes me as Bentley think differently about Riff, going like, okay, so the treasure of Aether wasn't what I thought it was, if it's anything at all. And then we've got this tree root shit that I'm not supposed to be able to fucking draw, but I'm seeing the vision from Alistair. and then like I'm talking to my uncle in the vision, but I'm also still Riff at the time. So am I on the same plane that Zephyrus is on, which is also why like I'm even though that Zephyrus died because of my confidence earlier that we could beat this fucking stupid bird. Now, like, my confidence is back, baby. And, like, I go, like, I wonder if, like, it was, you know, if it all meant something, if it was all, like, you saw what happened, and then now you've like fucking, you know, shout out to Rhett Rice-Fells, retconned, you know, this thing to like, maybe we get Zephyrus back, or at least we put Zephyrus to peace in a dimension, you know, who knows what Rhett wants to do, if he wants to play him or not, but like we put him to bed in a proper, respectful way.
Resolve the story, yeah.
Yeah, whether it's
absolutely.
him coming back as the character or him being fucking put into a shallow grave. But no, I love this shit, and I could sit here and talk to you for fucking hours about it, and we should get the fuck out of here because it's late and you should go home.
Gonna be the
and this is the longest metagame minute ever. It's probably 30 minutes.
I mean, we got to outdo each one every time. It's going to increasingly get longer. Soon they're going to be longer than the episodes.
No. Mine will be the longest. Everyone else's will be shorter, but I got
yeah, but still, yeah.
But one more time.
Since episode 1.
In case, how dare you? But in case I wasn't clear enough, this was the most fun I've ever had playing D&D.
Yeah, this was very good.
It was the most fun I've ever had. The twists and turns, the things that I picked up on from you, I'm going to take into my game that I'm going to start DMing.
Yeah. And that's how you DM, is you steal all those tricks everyone else does.
I'm stealing all your shit because you're the best. And I'm so happy that it was my idea to bring you in. You heard it here first. And all the kudos to Alex. Thank you guys all very much for listening. Alex, you're in charge now. Take us out however you want. I'm out of here. Hey, refer your 9-pound shower.
Well, thank you guys for joining us again. The Metagame Minute, the longest Metagame Minute, I'm sure. We will see you next Monday for Scories, number 3 in the lineup. Scory story. Grab your swords and keep on adventuring. Scory story.